Hello and welcome back to another Kerbal Space Program episode. Last time we flew a rocket to outer space, well not exactly outer space. We flew a rocket into space and we recovered it, and then we flew a supersonic plane, and then we flew up to 50,000 feet. Now let's warp to a new day and let's get started. I hope you're doing great. Sorry for the lack of videos for the past few days. I missed out on my original voiceover, so I had to re-record it. I will upgrade the launchpad because I need the higher tonnage limit. You see that I have the first artificial satellite contract, and I'll get into the VAB to make a rocket. Like and subscribe if you like the video. To make this sounding rocket, have multiple solid stages, kind of like how the US Navy launched with Explorer. It is kind of weird that Explorer separator over there not making any sense, but we can ignore it. Trying out for a little bit of the solids, and then decide to go with the AJ-10, which is pretty overpowered early game, not gonna lie. I then go, I wanted to see what kind of rocket engines I had. I wanted to see the RD-0 to kind of see the more efficient stages. I then decided to go with the XLR-11 and put many of them. And then once I put the engine, I looked and I noticed that the XLR has terrible efficiency. So I put the Gina, I don't remember the name. And I put that as a second stage. I then decided to put some booster stages to help a little bit with the delta V, because it was barely enough. Sure, going around Earth is around 9.5 kilometers per second of delta V. However, since Kerbin here is a little bit bigger, I am pretty safe with 10 kilometers per second. Anyway. Okay, we're now on the launch pad with our rocket. So this is a 4-stage rocket, and our mission is quite simple. I use the RD-108, which is the booster stage of Sputnik's rocket, and then I use the NAA-75, I believe, which is the main engine of the Mercury Redstone rocket. And I've put them in green little tanks so I can tell the difference. And so our mission is quite simple. All we have to do is try to get to orbit and send some scientific data. Now, in a few minutes, you will notice that even though I get to orbit, I don't get to transmit any scientific data, rendering this mission completely obsolete. We have takeoff, and I'm spinning towards the orientation that I'm trying to go. I will go completely west this time. I'll be flying towards west, then I'll fix up my orientation a little bit more so I can have the boosters on the side and not up and down. It doesn't really change things, it's just a more aesthetic, I guess. We're passing through the clouds. The rocket is quite quick, I must say. We're talking like 2 Gs off the bat right here. Already passing Mach 1.5, approaching Mach 2 at about 40,000 feet, and the white aerodynamic effects will soon turn red as more heat accumulates. Any moment we'll have booster separation. We have about... There we go. We have booster separation. We continue with the main stage at around 3 Gs. You can see the rocket climbing up pretty quickly. At this moment I get to enjoy a little bit the view. It's quite amazing. You can see the island down there. The clouds are pretty... I don't know. Pretty in general. I cannot find a way to describe them. And so you can see that the plumes are really expanding. The whole thing. Anyway, I fix up a little bit the stages because in real engines, in realism overhaul, rocket engines tend to need a little bit of time in order to be in full power. So what you do is start the engine around a second or two before you burn out the actual stage. Because most of the time what will happen is if you're too late, and most of the times you'll have like 4 or 5 Gs, you will cut off the rocket, and then the sudden stop in acceleration will cause the engine, the next engine, to be unstable. What it means is it will have no engine, it will have no rocket fuel ready to get it into the chamber. And so you'll be sitting in the air with essentially no ready rocket. And so your mission would go in vain. That's why you see me activate rocket engines 1 or 2 seconds before the actual stage ends. And as I was explaining the whole process, we ditched the main stage, used up all the second stage, and now I'm down to the third stage, which uses the AJ-10 series mid, which is pretty efficient. It has mid ignitions, which is good. I'm trying to lower the gimbal to control the oscillations. In fact, I try to use the kill rotation of MechJeb, and it seems to do the trick. As we climb up slowly, you will see that our velocity is slowly approaching orbit. Our signal is holding strong, no foreshadowing. Of course, we'll have a nice and high orbit at around 200 kilometers. As we approach orbit right now, we're just a couple hundred meters. You will see that, there we go, we have reached orbit, and then I decided, you know what, no, let's use up all the fuel, and let's keep going at it, see how far we can go. Can we reach 5,000 kilometers, 10,000 kilometers, maybe even 40,000 kilometers where high space exists? And then, just after I activated the rocket engine, I lost signal. Unable to communicate with any of the ground stations for the time being. Now, while my mission is a success in terms of getting orbit, I cannot transmit any scientific data, nor separate the upper stage, which means that I have an avionics unit drawing a lot of power on a tiny little probe with about 3,500 kilowatts of electricity. Now, yeah, each unit of electric charge is technically a kilowatt. Although you could say it's not exactly what we're used to with like kilowatt hours, watt hours. There's a bit of conversion to that. But since it's per second, imagine that it's kilowatt hours divided by 3,500 or 306 or 3,600 if you want to be very specific. Now I desperately try and get in contact with any of the ground stations. Now you do notice that there are much fewer ground stations, since this is no RSS, real solar system thing, but has almost what remote tech offers on stock. Now, I believe that vanilla remote tech would give you just a space center, which makes it a challenge and a half to actually have communications near Kerbin, especially when you don't have an entire array of satellites to help communicate with you while on your mission or something. Now, I noticed that there is some mystery connection here, and I shook it off, thinking that the game is just bugged out a bit. Now, I made a crucial mistake of holding some scientific data. Now, X-Science holds that, as if you have a mission that is still developing. And I kept the science in hopes that I would get a connection with a ground station, which you will see that I reach out all the way till around 10,000 kilometers, but the antennas are simply not strong enough to pick up the signal. I make the turn around. I return to the spacecraft to look at this wonderful view of Kerbin and the sun rising the horizon. I can't help but keep enjoying that view. But yeah, unfortunately, the probe is dead. And you know, the contract lawyers will not like it that we didn't transmit any scientific data. In fact, they're gonna ask us to do the exact same mission twice. I then decided to take the exact same rocket after skipping a day, and then I launched it straight up. I thought that I would go much further out than that, maybe even from high space. However, as you will see, I will not go much higher. The planet looks majestic, and it's gonna be a mission and a half, let me tell you. And now let's get back to the path of getting to the atmosphere. Okay, so we are getting into the atmosphere. And the probe will burn up pretty quickly. We're dropping down at like 8 kilometers per second. And there, just as I finished my sentence, the probe ceased to exist. Literally evaporated under the heat of the atmosphere. Now this heat is mostly you rubbing against atmosphere's molecules. But here we go, back on the same rocket. Tweaked a few differences here and there. Removed Sputnik's cockroach ear antennas and put on one Communitron. And then I decided to repeat the launch. This time going for a polar orbit. And so I continued the flight. I went higher up, and then I forgot a bit about myself and got overshot. Instead of going for 150 kilometers, I got 350 kilometers. But that's fine. It should help me get a signal for longer. Since the communication stations are so little on Kerbin. Actually, yeah, there are more than what they are in classic remote tech. And here we are, back at it again. Just managed to circularize and pressing the stage button to separate essentially the upper stage. And now we have a functional probe in low Kerbin orbit. Now, as I would say in the original voiceover, the amount of delta V that you would need to go around Earth is around 9.5 kilometers per second of delta V. What you can do to approximately calculate that is take the orbital velocity, which, in case you don't know, for the planet that you're exploring, you're going to go to the map room, tracking station, in parentheses, go to the planet that you want, go to the information tab, and you will see the escape velocity. If you take that escape velocity and divide it by the square root of 2, you will get the orbital velocity. Now for Earth or Kerbin essentially, you take the orbital velocity, and then you add roughly 2,000 meters per second, 18 meters per second, maybe 1,500 even, if you have like a core stage or a very fast rocket, and you have approximately the correct amount. Now, I reached the polar orbit. Back to our mission. We reach polar orbit. I try to take scientific data, but unfortunately I have no signal to take the science. Now, technically under remote tech you cannot activate the scientific instruments. So, me taking a bit from the ice caps is technically a little bit of cheesing. So I wait until getting contact with another ground station. I get every single scientific data and I transmit it. Now, as you can see, I kept vanilla Kerbal Space Programs 15 or 25, actually it's 25 electricity per transfer. What it means is that for each packet of transmit, you spend 25 electricity. I did that to be more of a challenge. Say for initial probes, or those that have too little power, that you cannot transmit like 10,000 scientific experiments at once, because you'll draw out the little batteries. Just a little bit like salt into our challenge here. I then continue to grab more scientific data, passing through each biome, and I remember that I failed to get from the shores and that I don't get any warnings. So what I do is lock up all the scientific instruments that need to be taken in low orbit, such as the Geiger Mueller, the thermometer, the telemetry on the probe. And once I found shores, I retake the scientific I activate the scientific instruments, and I transmit the rest of the data. Now I try to go for the South Pole. You can see southern ice shelves, but I'm not close enough to get to that polar station over there. So I'll have to wait for a couple of orbits, trying to nibble on the edge of the horizon. That station is just over the horizon and I can't get the signal. When I say horizon, I mean, of course, the point where the planet's curvature interrupts the straight line communication of two different observers. So I go for another pass. And I just try and get it over. Oh, and I get it. I get it momentarily, but I miss the biome. So I decide to take some science from highlands or mountains. Oh, it's from Badlands, actually. It's from Badlands. Yeah, because that's quite a rare biome, actually. And you can see that I barely have any electric charge left. And I decided to keep that for some South Pole science. And so we make another pass. Yeah, I ignored Tundra. Either way, I had no connection. Although the auroras look pretty good, not gonna lie. Make another pass of the South Pole. You can see that once I receive a signal, I fire up the scientific instruments. I think I barely have enough data. Yeah, barely enough to transmit one result. And you can see me just lying at around 5 electric charge, 5 kilowatts of power, electrical power, as the game describes it. And that renders our mission success. Now, yeah, it's pretty bugged out for a moment. You see the Space Center submerged. Now you can see X-Plane Supersonic. That's gonna be the next mission to do in the next episode. I look more like solar powered, crewed missions. I'll do some of that too in the next episode. Also, orbital speed and rescue will be definitely on the list. So, to make contract configurator work alongside RP-0 and Kerbin, I changed the body from Earth to Kerbin, and forgot to change most of the names. But don't worry, they all absolutely work correctly. You will see Duna landing, Moon landing, Eve landing, etc., etc. After looking around the tech tree, looking which technology might be the best, I decided to buy basic construction, and then we should see what I chose. And so I activate some of the activate some of the tech tree nodes that are basically essential. You see that I activated survivability. Okay, let's fix it real quick. There we go. Fixed it. No more submerged space center. I'll go and terminate that mission. And right here, you can see Kerbin that it's a little bit larger than Earth. Earth being at around 603,070 kilometers in radius. You can see the escape velocity is more or less the same, maybe 200, 300 meters per second difference. And that should be it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Smash like and subscribe if you did. And I should see you in the next episode. Have a nice day.